continue our stories of Reb Zusha. Yeah, Reb Zusha Vilamovsky, the Rebbe's partisan. So Rabbi Glukowski, again, he's the Rav, the Shliach in Rehovot, relates. So once I made up with Reb Zusha that I'd come to Kfar Chabad with my car, I'd take him to a certain, an event was taking place. So I was going to, we made up, I come 7 o'clock, 7 p.m. to pick him up. He says, Lamaise, the actual fact says about Glukowski, because of he's a Rav, big Rav, one of the big Rabban, Chabad Rabban in Etzro. Anyway, so as a result of a Shalom Bayis problem that I was busy with, I came later half an hour. And this was before cell phones and so on, and I couldn't call him. And he says Reb Zusha was a big daiken in Zman. A sifis at meetings, he was always the first there. And he was waiting 7 o'clock outside. He was very unhappy when he saw me coming late. I started to explain to him, I'm sorry, but what happened? I'm busy, very important thing. So I just told you. I vote for Reb Zusha. Listen to these words. He says to me, I'll say in Yiddish, I'll translate. Mendel, his name is Mendel. Du kennst haben Glukowski. Du kennst haben a Sach Meiles. Aber du kommst spät, bist du ein Mensch mit a Sach Meiles. You may have a lot of talents and virtues, but if you come late, you're an Mensch, you're not a Mensch with a lot of virtues, a lot of talents. End of story. It's a Meridic story, and a Moshel, a really an example of a Chassid. Time is precious, and every moment has to be used. The only time we saw by the Rebbe, we saw like impatience when time was being wasted. Ad kedei kach, very often happened by the Fabrengens, there only is more, even later. And they would ask someone to sing a niggun, whatever. Some guest came, a Russian niggun, actually sold the niggun, here on the Fabrengens. Early years more. And then often, a few seconds delay, they would go, no, what's this public, no, for the, because there's no, every raga, every moment is created by the Eibishter. It's Yomim Yutzoru, V'lo Echad Mehem, Esim Shakila, that's the whole Maimed. Every moment has to be used to the fullest. That's the famous Maimed, Esim Shakila, Tavshin Beis. We learned it. They cried and cried in the Maimed. And that's the hallmark of a chassid. I'm just going to conclude with, there was an article written many years ago, I remember in Australia, I heard this. This would be in the early 70s. I think it was in the Allgemeine. I think Gershon Jacobson wrote the article about the Rebbe. Before he published it, he asked the Rebbe's, he submitted the article. It was about the Rebbe. And on David Al-Flissen, whatever, maybe Yud Shvat, whatever the occasion was. Just there, before I continue with the story, the Allgemeine was a Yiddish newspaper that the Rebbe encouraged Gershon Jacobson to buy, which he did, and became the editor. And the Allgemeine was very, very important to the Rebbe because it was read by many from Yidden. It was a daily Yiddish newspaper. Now it's weekly, if that. I don't know if they still print it. Some of them do. And to bring Chassidus to the Torah, Yiddish-speaking world, this is a big, if not the deepest part of the Afatzas and Mayonis. That a Torah Yid should learn Chassidus. So every week in the Allgemeine, there was a Sich of the Rebbe, and there was articles, etc. It's a very important tool in Afatzas and Mayonis. Anyway, so he wrote this article about them. He wrote this Meridic story. He wrote that by the Rebbe, every minute and every second is precious. So the Rebbe crossed out every second. But the Rebbe left every minute, like made the b'miktzas. The Rebbe is saying he allowed to be published that every minute is precious. And it's unbelievable when you consider this, that by Yechidus and by the Negunim and the Fabrengens for hours, there was no, there's no clock when engaged in the moment for you in something that needed to be done, but to waste a moment, and that's how chassid has to be. So the position says to him, Mendel, you're a wonderful fellow, but if you come late, you're a nishke mensch. You're a wonderful fellow. There's nishke mensch. Also, I just conclude with, I said every 3 times, coming on time, especially to an appointment, is number one, respectful of the other person. We're talking about dibur, about connecting to another person, being punctual at a meeting. It's one thing you're late for your things. Okay, so you came late. We're talking about when people are waiting for you, or someone is waiting, it's respect for the other person. And that's, we're learning now, is the ultimate avodah, is connect to another on the terms, the other person's terms. All right, my dear friends, have a wonderful day. And Be'ez Hashem, we'll see you all tomorrow.